Hi, my name is Maddie and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 4 things to consider when choosing a head covering. And at the end of the video, we are going to go over a few different veiling styles. The first thing that we want to consider when choosing from a veil is the amount of coverage that it gives. Katakalupto is the Greek word that is used for cover in 1 Corinthians 11, and it means to wear a veil. A veil is defined as a thing that serves to cover, conceal, or disguise. So we want to make sure that the veil we choose is doing its job and providing an adequate amount of coverage. That being said, lace and see-through veils do not provide the coverage that we're looking for unless they are put on top of an undercap that does provide the coverage that we're looking for. Based on verse 6 in 1 Corinthians 11, where Paul says that if a woman refuses to cover, she should cut off her hair, I believe that means that the length of the woman's hair should be covered. So the veil and undercap should be able to cover the majority of the hair, the length of the hair, and also come on top of the head and cover that as well. Based on historical evidence, I do think it is okay to show like an inch or so of the hairline, but the hair that is showing should not be hanging loosely. It should be put up or put back in some way. The second point that we want to take into consideration is modesty. Your veil should glorify Christ and serve as an aid to carry out the Great Commission. It should not be used to glorify yourself or make you look more attractive, fashionable, etc. People should not be thinking about your veil more than they are thinking about why you are wearing it. When you wear very bold or extravagant coverings, it is more than likely going to make people think that you are trying to make a fashion statement or make a statement about yourself or your own personality. And I'm not going to give specific examples on this because I do think that it is highly dependent on the culture and region that you live in, as well as the resources that you have to choose from, which we will be addressing in the next point. Lastly, the veil should be appropriate for the occasion. So the veil that you wear to go to the grocery store will most likely not be the same veil that you wear to go to a wedding. It's important to take into consideration where we are going to, what type of event we are going to have respect for the people around us. The third point that we are going to talk about is culture. So depending on the country and culture that you live in, different veils will have different meanings and also be associated with different religions, beliefs, and lifestyles. This is very important to take into consideration because no matter what veil that you are wearing, you are sending a message. And that message is very much dependent on these 2 aspects. Because every place and culture is so unique, I'm just going to share a personal example from my own life of why I don't wear certain head coverings. Now this may change in the future, but this is just my thought process as of right now. Personally, I do not wear hijab because I do not want to be identified as a Muslim. I think that the hijab is very beautiful, but I personally choose not to wear it for this reason. But if things change here in America or I go to visit the Middle East, for example, I will probably reconsider my decision. And the fourth and final point that I'm going to go over is laws of the land. The Bible says in Romans 13 verse 1, every person is to be in subjection to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those which exist are established by God. So as a general rule, we should follow the laws pertaining to where we live out of respect for our authority and also for our own protection. For example, in America, we have a lot more freedom in what head coverings we can choose to wear in public. But in different parts of Europe, for example, France, there are restrictions on what coverings you are allowed to wear. And in specific parts of the Middle East, there are requirements for your head covering. These are all very important things to take into consideration when choosing a veil. With that being said, we are now going to go over a few different types of head coverings. First of all, there is the snood. This is commonly worn by Christians and also Jews and women in other religions and cultures as well. The babushka is more typically worn by women in Eastern Europe, but it is also traditionally associated with Christianity and Catholicism. I also know that a lot of Christian women just use an infinity scarf that they have as a head covering. This is probably the easiest way to do it, especially if you already have one. Then there are turbans. Turbans have mainly been worn by Jews as well as Muslims. There is also the tickle. These are mainly worn by Orthodox Jewish women. And there is also the hijab, which I mentioned earlier. This is obviously worn mainly by Muslim women, as well as the niqab. But surprisingly, Christians actually have historically worn this style, mainly in Egypt, but I do want to point out the fact that this style does not only belong to Muslims, even though it is highly associated with them. Christians in the early church in Egypt actually wore this before Islam was created. So that is all I have for this video. I hope that it was helpful. I definitely encourage you to pray and ask God to lead you in this. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.